Okay, so we're going to go ahead and solve problem number 7. Now, problem number 7 wants to find an expression that is equivalent to this whole thing right here. Now, they're telling us for a fact that the x values cannot equal to these numbers right here, because if they do, then that means that your denominator is going to equal to 0, and having a fraction with the denominator 0 cannot work. So fractions that are being multiplied are honestly like the best, because when you multiply a fraction, you literally just multiply straight across. So if you have a over b times c over d and you're multiplying these fractions, you just multiply them straight across. So it's ac divided by bd. So in order for me to multiply these fractions, I just multiply them straight across. But if you look at the answer choices, they're very, very small compared to the actual expressions. That means that I need to do some sort of factorization. So I'm going to factor out as much as possible, because usually when you're multiplying problems, what you're looking for is common terms that can be canceled out in the numerator and the denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and factor out the numerator in the first fraction using my factoring T-chart, where the 8 goes on the left and the negative 9 goes on the right. Negative 9x, this has to get multiplied and this has to get added. So numbers that multiply to a positive 8 but add up to a negative 9. So that means I'm going to have a negative 1 times a negative 8, because a negative 1 plus a negative 8 equals to negative 9. But also a negative 1 times negative 8 equals to a positive 8. So that means that I'm going to end up with x minus 1 and x minus 8. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for this denominator right here. I'm going to use a positive 8 and a positive 9x. So in this case, I'm just going to use an 8 times 1 because that's an 8. But 8 plus 1 equals to 9. So that means I'm having x plus 8 and an x plus 1. So now I'm going to rewrite my expressions with my new numerators and denominators in factored form. So I'm going to have x minus 1 times x minus 8 multiplied by x plus 8. Because when I multiply straight across, I can just, instead of having two fractions, I'll just have one. And then I'll have an x plus 8 times an x plus 1. Now for this 8x minus 8, I see that they both have an 8 in common. So I'll take the 8 out. And then that'll leave me with an x minus 1. Because 8x divided by 8 is just going to be x. And then 8 divided by 8 is going to be negative 1. Just because this right here has a subtraction. So now that I have them all as one fraction, all I have to do is just cancel out the common terms. So that means x plus 8, I have it in the bottom and the top. X minus 1, bottom and top. And so then that'll leave me with x minus 8 divided by 8 times x plus 1. So x minus 8 divided by an 8 times x plus 1. I see that B is my answer. That matches that exactly. And therefore, I am done.